chant some of the previous name one more tonight. Each night we are seeing one additional name of Puja Gurudev. So I suppose tonight we would have reached 77. 73. Oh, there are no numbers here. I'm trying to remember the number in night. Om Phalasakti Rahitaya Namaha. Om Phalasakti Rahitaya Namaha. Om Bhavaktaya Namaha. Om Bhavaktaya Namaha. Om Bandhamochakaya Namaha. Om Bandhamochakaya Namaha. Om Brahmanishthaya Namaha. Om Brahmanishthaya Namaha. Om Brahmaparaya Namaha. Om Brahmaparaya Namaha. Om Bhayanashanaya Namaha. Om Bhayanashanaya Namaha. Om Bharata Gauravaya Namaha. Om Bharata Gauravaya Namaha. Om Bhumne Namaha. Om Bhumne Namaha. Om Mahavakyopadeshakaya Namaha. Om Mahavakyopadeshakaya Namaha. Om Maharshaye Namaha. Om Maharshaye Namaha. Om Maharshaye Namaha. Om Maharshaye Namaha. Maharshi in Sanskrit, in fourth case becomes Maharshaye. Maharshi is made up of two words also. Maharshi. He is called as Maharshi. Maharshi is made up of Maharishi, two words. Means a great rishi. You all would have been hearing, attending satsang, going here and there for so many years, and you would have heard many, many words. So all of them have a little bit of different connotations. I tell you what words you heard them, just you don't know. Look here. You have heard the word Devarishi? Devarishi Narad. You have heard, no? You hear all the time. So there is one type of rishi. Devarishi. You also heard of Rajarishi. Rajarishi. You have heard of Brahmarishi. Brahmarishi. Word you will see also. Then you hear Rishi. Rishi living on the road every day. Rishi alone. You have heard already word, na? Brahmarishi, then Rajarishi, Devarishi, Rishi. So then one more word in that whole list of them that is called as Maharshi, like Ramana Maharshi, like that. So, what is the difference? See, Devarishi means a rishi among the devas, they Narad. And a different loka, not in this loka. He belongs to a different loka altogether, so he is a rishi in that loka, among devas. Then, Brahma Rishi, one who's, see, I'll tell you, the greatest story between Brahma Rishi and Raja Rishi is between Vishwamitra and Vasishta Muni. Vasishta. Vasishta was considered to be Brahma Rishi. Brahma Rishi means what? A Brahmana who had become a Rishi. And Raja Rishi means a king who has become a Rishi. Means a Kshatriya who has become a Rishi. So this Vishwamitra is a Raja Rishi. He always wanted to be Brahma Rishi. And so if you see the Puranas and all, there are long story between himself and that Vasishta Muni. And he wanted Vasishta Muni to call him Brahma Rishi. Then only he will be Brahma Rishi. If anybody called Brahma Rishi, I don't take your word as being authentic and all. And one day, he had gone with the intention of killing this Vasishta. I'll remove him. Because he doesn't call me Brahma Rishi. And as he was approaching there, Vasishtha Muni did not see him. And he was telling to his disciples, some say he was telling to his wife, on a moonlit night, the moon was bright, and he said, Vasishtha Muni saying no, and that Vishwamitra creeping up from behind to kill him. At that time, look at this moon. This moon reminds me of the pure heart of Brahma Rishi Vishwamitra. So he had worked his way all the way to become a Brahma Rishi, as proclaimed by Vishwamitra himself, but by Vasishtha Muni himself, you see. So anyway, there is one whose heart has become pure. Then some people ask, but how are you going to kill him? Yeah. So sometimes, you see, Vasishtha Muni became like the guru. Sometimes that one Durgun can be removed by one word of that guru. See, he only said one line. That also not knowing that Vishwamitra was. And sometimes that just to push over the edge, only that one thing is required. All his long years of desire and this and that, which led to this desire to remove this Vishwamitra also, and this Vasishtha also. All that was removed by one line of that guru. And he was proclaimed as Brahma Rishi by Guru himself. So that Brahma Rishi, Raja Rishi could become Brahma Rishi, and so many things you hear like that, right? In Puranas, all these stories are there. But not Maharishi. Maharishi means one who has gone beyond all Brahma Rishi, Raja Rishi, Rishi, and all that. He calls it Maharishi. That's why Ramana Maharishi. His name is given to Gurudev. Maharshaye Namaha. Salutation to that great Rishi. Okay. Now, those of you who are joining tonight for the first time, we are saying Srimad Bhagavad Gita. When we left it last night, we were in chapter 13. We have started the Jnana portion of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and in this Jnana portion, I told you last night you have to start with, you have to put on your thinking cap now, because sometimes some people say bombastic things will be said. Last time when we left, we had seen the first two verses. Bhagavan started using terminologies of the time, started making a distinction between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So what that means, these are technical words used in Bhagavad Gita, but you have heard this already before, and you have heard it in just simple words, right? That simply means, okay, let me tell you what he himself explains it to mean. Kshetra means this body, mind and intellect. Kshetrajna means the one who knows the body, mind and intellect. That is a very simple meaning, right? Now, to break that down further even, Kshetra means, before I tell you to break it down, let me tell you the literal meaning of that also. Right? Kshetra means the field. Field, like outside there is a field there. That is called Kshetra. A playing field, any field. Right? You know why farmers are always very successful? Farmers are the most successful people everywhere. You know why? Because they're always outstanding in their field. But any kind of field like that outside, you can see the farmer out there. Field. So, literal meaning. Now, as I told you just now, we have to break it down for you. It means simply this. Anything that can be observed, anything that is observed, Tulsidas deals with all of this in simple Chaupai form. In simple Chaupais, Tulsidas deals with all of this Vedanta in very, very simple language. The only thing is that when you read Ramayana, you don't see this thing. What you see? Ram gone burn. We only see those stories, Ram gone burn. And they cry and रावण ने सीता जी को अपहरण किया और सब लोग रोया और रोए. रावण किडनैप सीता, everybody cry, and राम भी रोते रहते हैं. राम also left there crying. That story everybody like, छोड़ चले आज हमारे राम अयोध्या छोड़ चले. That people like them story and they like to cry and think, today my Ram leave Ayodhya. Oh. Okay. Inside that same Ramayana, all this same Bhagavad Gita is there, all Upanishad, everything is there. In Aranyakand, when Bhagavan Shri Ram is describing to Lakshmana Maya, he describes this exact same idea. Go chara jaha lagi man jai. In that line, see, all these chopai line and all, means wherever the eyes can go and the mind can go, the mind only goes and the eyes, they only go in the field of the objectified universe. It's called the field. It's called a kshetra. And the whole thing is a product of Maya. So anything objectified, observable, delineated, conceivable, conceived, any such thing, because it is something objectified, you can. But the subject, the one who knows the whole object, the objectified world, he's called a kshetrajna. He's called a sakshi sometimes. He calls a witness, the knower. Jna word in Sanskrit means the knower. Kshetrajna. The same letter from which word jnanam comes. Jnanam, knowledge. Right? So jna or is knower. So sarvajna, knower of all. Sarvajna, all of these words are there. So this, now Bhagavan introduces very deep and profound subject matter. Not any simple thing. But he knows that, so he shocks you with this thing in the beginning, but then people usually don't think about knower and known. People usually don't think about sakshi, witness and witnessed. What time is that? We only concerned with the witnessed. What is the price? First you tell me, what cost? Weight available. And know what is quality? Yours real good. I buy one day cheap thing from China. They're true. Look, yesterday a man asked me, is Swamiji lend me your gill pen? I have a nice sharpen that thing myself. Because I don't like people give when you cotton that do cut the coconut, I brutalize the coconut. When that thing dull. So I go and get one and sharpen it myself. That fellow said, Swamiji, lend me a gill pen. I lend him. I come back after 5 minutes. He hit 2 strokes with that gill pen and that thing break to pieces. That thing come like a saw. So in more idea, actually that break, that get teeth like a saw. He says, Swamiji, where get a cheap Chinese thing? So the moment he would see that thing, he know there's some cheap. I myself didn't know, But when I see it, then alright, sufficient evidence. So now you see how we concerned about the outside, not this type of material, this thing cheap, this the Chinese thing, this only cost cheap thing, no good thing, no cheap. We know all of them kind of thing, outside thing very good, right? But who is the one who is the subject of all of this? Countless things transpiring in the universe. The subject is the Atma. That subject we don't pay attention to. We only pay attention to all of these things. Also, Bhagavan is introducing directly the absolute reality, the self, God, Atma, Paramatma, whatever word you want to call. He's introducing that directly. So he said, one is called the field and the other is called the knower of the field. What a simple thing. Now we have to see from number 3, right? Listen to him. Shri Krishna Sharanam Shri Krishna Sharanam Krishna Sharanam Mama Shri Krishna Sharanam बिहारी लाल की जय। क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत। क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञोर्ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम. He says that in every kshetra, now see, remember I told you his explanation of the word kshetra, you see, he was not concerned too much about the external world. I told you the whole universe is included in the word kshetra. Bhagavan just includes this body, mind and intellect, because the sadhana becomes more personalized when he comes just to the body. One more thing, you could say, look here, forget about the world for the time. Let me just deal with our own body, mind and intellect. And whatever you can say about the body, mind and intellect, because it is part of this world, you could say for the rest of the world. So he said the kshetra which we are going to deal with, don't deal with the whole world. You can't, that's too much for your brain. Let me just deal with body, mind and intellect. So he says in all bodies, mind and intellect, the kshetrajna, the knower of the body, mind and intellect, he says, I am that knower. Bhagavan says, I am the knower in all fields. Remember, fields are all body, mind and intellect. So Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi. You know, you understand. Vidhi means you know, understand. That I am mam. I am sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetrajnam. I am the knower in all. Means the knowing principle in all of us. And last night I explained that briefly to you also. See, right now, you will know everything about, well, not everything, but you know a lot of things about yourself, right? Like you know that I'm tired, you know. Who know you're tired? I won't know you're tired. Only you will? No. So there's a knower in you that knows the tiredness. There's a knower in you that knows the confusion in your intellect. There's a knower in you knows the pains of your heart and the disappointments and the anguish. But who knows? There's a knower in you that knows your knee paining from arthritis. Right? Nobody could know. That knower in you is the same knower in me. Because the knowing principle is only because of consciousness. Chit. Sat, Chit, Anand. Bhagavan is Satchitananda. So without that Chit, consciousness, awareness, there is no knowing. So the knowing principle in all of us is one and same. Bhagavan says, I am that knower. I am that Chit in everybody. Without which you will know nothing. Dead men tell no tales. Kshetra, no, he says, real knowledge. If you really want to pursue real knowledge in this world, because people think, knowledge about chemistry and physics and biology and sociology. That knowledge. You know about so many things. This is real. Kshetra, kshetrajnayoho jnanam, yata jnanam matam mama. He said, my opinion. Now, whose opinion is greater than Bhagavan's? Bhagavan is his opinion. There are still many people in this world who feel their opinion greater than Bhagavan. But Bhagavan says, in my opinion, real jnanam, real knowledge is this knowledge between the kshetra and kshetrajna, the one who knows and what he knows. If a person can understand that thing, he has real knowledge. All these other what they call worldly knowledge and all, they amount to naught. They amount to naught. How? Well, nothing in this phenomenal world, the observable world, nothing is conclusive. It's always open-ended. You know that, no? There is nothing conclusive. Blood red or not? What do you call our blood? Well, we say red, right? Red like blood. When you look at blood under the microscope, it look red? No. So now it's red or what? Under the microscope, it look yellow. So now what do you call our blood? No, that's to show you. Worldly knowledge is never conclusive. It is only from a certain perspective. It holds water. That is all. So we have to know that about the world. But then there's a knower who knows this. That the worldly knowledge is not conclusive. If that knower was not conclusive, then nothing will be, then no progress is possible, isn't it? This portion of Jnana is the best portion of Bhagavad, especially this chapter and chapter 15. If you want to gain enlightenment in no time, study this chapter and chapter 15 every day. It's the most wonderful thing, I tell you. So now see that. There is the consciousness in all of us. That thing is the basis and foundation for all things in the universe. The consciousness is, I'll give you an example. There was a French philosopher, his name was René Descartes. Some people pronounce it Descartes. René Descartes. That's French. In French language, the easiest way to learn French is when you're pronouncing anything, you leave out half of the letters. Have you seen the spelling of the word Kobo? In Sanskrit, Kobo is so simple. K-O-B-O. Right? K-O-B-O is Kobo or not? How do you spell Kobo in Sanskrit, in English? Which we spell? That have an X and U and all kind of thing inside it. Nah. My God. And Shatain. Shatain, I tell you, how many letters, they're unnecessary. Well, that's French. Anyway. So his name was René Descartes. Don't lose your thread, eh? You come back, you know. René Descartes. So now, this man said something, you know, very, very wonderful thing. Of course, he was standing on his head when he said it, but we'll still study it. You know. He said, I think, therefore I exist. Very famous. Cogito ergo sum. Something like that in French. So, the idea is, what he really meant to convey is, because thinking is going on, that necessarily means that there is a subject who is primary and fundamental to the thinking process. Because if that subject is not present, when the person is not present, the thinking is not possible. Someone may argue, you understand this much first? If the subject, the one who is thinking, if he is not there, can thinking go on? Thinking is not possible. So the fact that thinking is going on, from that one can surmise that the thinker exists. Now between the thinking and the thinker, who is primary? The thinker, because if the thinker is not there, thinking is not possible. He is the more important one, isn't it? So now you take that same thing and you bring it to our subject matter here. The knower and the known. Right? Between the knower and the known, which one is primary? It has to be the knower, because if no knower is there, there is no such thing of ascertaining whether anything is yes or exists at all. Look here. Can you prove that there is a sixth element, which is space, air, fire, water, and earth, and Gifu? We have five elements, right? Space, air, fire, water, and earth, because they are known. The sixth one is Gifu. Anybody know it? But then, because it is not there, and when not known, then we conclude it is not there. Because there is a knower who is primary to the knowing process, then only we can conclude that there are things which are no. One more way you could see this thing. See, all this is a wonderful thing here. If you take away one sense organ out of the five, right? Suppose you take away eyes. Suppose no creature ever had eyes. Would they have been colors? How? Who would have concluded that they are colors? It means the eyes are necessary for the existence of colors. No eyes, no colors. You take away one sense organ, 1/5 of the universe vanishes. If you take away ears, would there have been sounds? No, who would have said? That's just like Gifu. Isn't it? If you keep removing, you see there's a 2/3 of the universe gone. You take away two sense organs. You take away three? I mean, not 2/3, what is that? 2/5. 3/5 gone if you take away three. And if you take away all five sense organs, the external universe is gone. What you have inside your mind, inside now, is only memories. Some memories. So you can think. Now you remove mind. Now there is nothing. No observable, objectified universe. But the consciousness which is making all of this known, that consciousness alone will be there, and it will be unobjectified, uniform, undifferentiated, pure consciousness per se. Now this type of supra sensuous knowledge we cannot have just by our senses and our mind. This type of knowledge we call as revealed knowledge of the Upanishads. We have to depend on Shabda Praman. Shabda Praman means the scripture. You can't have the knowledge just like that. You see? So at this point we depend solely on Shabda Praman. This is how the Upanishad. And then when we follow it, then we really come to discover. Well, really, this is what the Upanishad was saying. Anyway, this is all still technical things. What I want you to understand now, what is basic and primary is really the self, the I, the big I, consciousness. If that is not there, none of the other things are possible. Mind is not possible, knowing is not possible, and if you don't know anything, that for all purposes that doesn't exist, because you don't know Gifu, that means for all purposes Gifu is not there. You see? So now, this basic knower in all of us, Bhagavan calls the Kshetrajna, and he says he is the Kshetrajna. Alright. Now, two verses he takes to praise this knowledge. Quickly, I'll tell you, he's praising this knowledge. What is he telling? He's telling that this knowledge has been sung by one verse actually, by all the rishis and by the Brahma Sutras and all the great sages and all. Rishibhir Bhauda Gitam Chandobhir Vividay Pritak. All these different shastras and all praise this knowledge. All the rishis sing this knowledge. All the Vedas sing this knowledge. Brahma Sutra Padayashchaiva. And in the Brahma Sutra also, this knowledge is praised. Hetumadbhir Vinishitaihi. By all the logicians and all those people who give rational argumentation, all the philosophical schools of thought and all, they have all praised this knowledge which he is giving here today. And so now he says, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to now explain Kshetra, the whole field outside. And then I'll explain Kshetrajna. He said, Tat Kshetram Yatchaya Adrikcha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavascha Tasamasena Mishrinu. This is in number 4. It means, what is the nature of this field outside? What is the nature of the Jagat, the nature of the world in which you are living? Maya Krita Jagat. Kaisa hai? Oh, how is it? Tat Kshetram Yatchayadrik. How is it? How is this world? What is it like? Yadvikari. What are all its changes and modifications? Yataschayat. What from it? What is derived? Means what is the cause and the effect that are there in the universe? Sachayo Yat Prabhavascha. And that Kshetrajna, what is his powers? What is its nature? Prabhava. He who is means the Kshetrajna, the one who is the consciousness inside all of it that knows everything. What is his power, nature, and mahima, and greatness, and all that? Tatsamasena Mishra. And I'm telling you, Arjuna, I'm just going to tell you briefly also. You listen. Because I can't go into a long. But what we have to finish in 700 verses, you know. I can't tell you all long things. Now I'll tell you one more thing which Bhagavan does here very nicely. The external world outside, whether it is the field, the observable universe, you know, he describes the whole thing only in 2 verses. And the Atma itself now, this Paramatma who is inside, he goes to work on that. Because that is the important thing I told you, no? The observable world is such, I told you, that nothing is conclusive. That's first thing. Second thing, nothing is the same the next moment in this observable world. Correct or not? Like they say, you could never bathe in the same river twice. You know what is the meaning? The saying that you could never bathe in the same river twice. What is the meaning? I mean that water is flowing and you go there and bathe. You can't even bathe once. You can't even bathe in the same river once. That's an amazing thing, isn't it? So when you get in there, the water that touch you, that water, gone. If you come the next day, well, you're not bathing in the same river because some other. This is the nature of this world. The world is described exactly like that. Samsar. Have you heard the word? Samsar. Samsar comes from sar in Sanskrit, means to move. To Samyak sarati. Samyak sarati samsar. Means it is moving well and it's not going to wait on you. It is moving well. So you could never see the same universe also. At every moment it is changing. So that type of universe, now what you going to say conclusive about that? There are people mind going on changing all the time. Some faster than some. One wife telling the husband, I changed my mind. The husband says, so it's working better now? Change my mind like changing an engine? The mind goes on to everything in the world is changed. So Bhagavan only takes two verses. What Bhagavan means to say, look, why I will waste my time talking about a world which is, you really can't say anything conclusive. In two verses, see. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. From Sugriv, Ravana took Sita to the south. He heard from Shabari, Ravana took Sita to the south. He heard from Jatayu, Ravana took Sita to the south. Everybody told him Ravana took Sita to the south. So at a very superficial level, when you ask, why Bhagavan Sri Ram sent monkeys in all directions? He sent north, east, west and south. I once asked a sadhu that, why Bhagavan, he knew, so many people told him Ravana took her to the south. When he said a simple thing, that just to be sure. Means to cover all grounds and possibilities. We do that in life also, no? Bhagavan is doing some sort of thing like that right here now also. Means we have to treat with the subject matter exhaustively, because he introduced Kshetra and Kshetraj. Yeah, we know of the field, right? So I told you that the Kshetra is like a passing river. Means things are changing. You can't say anything conclusive about the world that is going to hold for all times. But still, to be exhaustive in the subject matter, he treats with the Kshetra in 2 verses. That is the idea. Can't just leave it out. So what is the Kshetra? This field, this world, Jagat. Well, he says Mahabhutani first thing. It is made up of the 5 elements. Mahabhutani means 5 elements. What? Space, air, fire, water, earth. Well, everything is made up of that. Then Mahabhutani, Ahankara. Ahankara means ego. What is the biggest part of the world, you know? Ego is part of the world, because I told you this body, mind and intellect all belong to the observable world, isn't it? You can observe your body, mind, intellect. So in that body, mind, intellect, in that consortium, one of the elements there is Ahankar. In the Antakarana, on the inside, when you say mind, on the inside, that's Mana, Chitta, Buddhi, Ahankar. There are 4 parts of that. Mind, intellect, ego, and memory on the inside. So you know your memories now. You know your ego also. People don't want to admit their ego, but everybody knows. You know all your... I remember this, I remember. How I remember if I pick up my gilpin. You remember? Chitta. Mana, Chitta, Buddhi, Ahankar. Right? Inside, all known. Buddhi, you give 2 of them here. Ahankar and Buddhi. So this is a part of the world. Avyaktam. Avyaktam means all the unmanifest. Unmanifest means what? Look here. All our karmas stored up inside of us, they are all unmanifest. That is part of the whole also. And they will manifest from time to time. No. Like see here. Only when I busy and I late for satsang, that time every taxi in front of me has stopped to take a passenger. No, like karma or not? Eh? Like karma. But I don't know that the karma there until I see it manifest. Like right now, right? See, every night, look at my karma. Every night I hold all of you captive. Every night I sit down here and you can't get an opportunity to talk. You only have to sit down there and listen. I imprison all of you every night. Man, when here I sit down on a 5-hour flight from here to Toronto or somewhere, or New York to LA, something. That time, somebody there, you know, one of those people who have talked plenty, he catch me and he talking from Port of Spain to Toronto, and I say, I can't get to put a word in edgewise. In one flight, all my karma come out. See, that karma or not? Karmas, all of us have so many countless karmas of countless lifetimes. All that is inside of us, but it is avyakta, unmanifest. Only when it happens now, you say, that has to be my karma. What other explanation you have? Karma only, it is there inside all of us, right? Avyaktam, that is part of the world also, which we are all experiencing. Avyakta also means Maya. Maya is also part of the world. Indriyani Rashaikam Chan, and the 10 indriyas, 10 senses. 10 senses, I told you 5 just now. So Pancha Karma Indriya, Pancha Jnana Indriya means 5 organs of knowledge and 5 organs of action. 10. These are all things I have recounted for you in the past. So this is part of all the observable world. You know, we know our 10 senses. We say, no, I am not seeing so good in you. I seen one fellow go marry doctor. He said, Doc, God, you have to check out my eyes. My eyes are real bad. Please do something. See, check it out. Doctor say, I know that the moment I see you coming through the window. he come through the window instead of you go. You have to be careful. One fella playing cricket, and sometimes in the eye you see two ball. He playing cricket. And when the bowler ball, he seen two ball coming. So he fired the wrong ball. The right ball coming hitting in his head. And then he had three ball. The next ball, yeah. When he balled out the next ball, I threw him. Anyway, so these are all the sense organs, 10 of them. The Pancha Chendriya Gocharaha. Pancha Chendriya Gocharaha means what? It means the 5 sense objects that relate to the 5 Jnana Indriyas. What is it? So the eyes, colors and forms. Right? So one outside. Then for the ears, all sounds like that. For the tongue, all taste. So Rupa, Rasa, Gandha and all that. Shabda, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. The 5 things outside, with sounds and taste and touch and all the things outside, those 5. No, these are all part of the colors and all part of the observable world. Now, he goes a little bit inside, observed in our mind. What is this? Ichha, desire, dvesha, hatred, sukham, happiness inside our mind, a little bit of happiness. Dukkham, oh, plenty. Little bit of happiness, but dukkham, Buddha says, sarvam kshanikam kshanikam, sarvam dukkham dukkham. Everything is only sorrow. How much sorrow human beings have? You see, all of you, you have little bit because you come in satsang every night. The people who do satsang, they have had terrible sorrow. You don't know. Terrible sorrow. They are living in such great stress and fear and so entangled in worldliness. And every day disappointment and misery. What this world is seeing, dukkham, jyada hai is jagat mein, sanghatas chetana dhritihi. And sanghata means sanghata means this body with all the parts. That's a part of the world. Or the 5 elements coming together and all the different space, air, fire, water and earth and make this body, the aggregate of the body. That is called sanghata. Chetana means awareness. Means awareness at our individual level. Not the all pervasive awareness. Because it means what individual level means. You are aware of one thing, I am aware of something else. That awareness at that level. Because I am saying some words from Bhagavad Gita here, everybody will get different meaning from that, isn't it? According to his own level of awareness and all that kind of thing. And some people miss the point totally. And when you hear everybody laugh, you ask, what do you say? I ask the other person there, what do you say? Awareness gone. Chetana, right? Chetana I call it. Dhriti means fortitude. Fortitude is part of the, why Bhagwan named this thing, Let me tell you something. In the problem, always the solution is lurking right there. In and amidst the problem, the solution is buried right there. We just have to look for the solution. So in this ephemeral jagat, that is all the time changing, transient, in the ephemeral jagat, there are certain things that we can use to come out from the jagat itself. So one of them is dhriti. It's very nice guna. Fortitude. Without that, you can't come out from the other given last. Fortitude. If you have great strength and resilience and all that sort of thing, fortitude, you can come out from this jagat. That is the idea. Last quality of the jagat. Now see, if in 1.5 verse actually. Finish. Jagat. He said, Etar kshetram samasena. This is the kshetra. Jagat, the observable world. Briefly. In 1.5 verses. Savikaram udahradam. With all its modifications I have told you already. Everything covered there. There is nothing in this universe that you cannot put in some of these categories here. And if you get challenged, well, it's all made up of space, air, fire, water and earth. Finish. You see? Because it's there. Mahabhutani ahankara. Mahabhutani is space, air, fire, water and earth. The whole universe recounted right there in 1.5 verses. Observable, objectified universe, right? Now, what about the kshetrajna? Oh, now, one more thing about kshetrajna. These are all technical things now. One little fella telling Farah. He said, Dad, who's stronger, me or you? He asking him. Who's stronger, me or you? Farah said, I stronger. Well, you a little boy. 3 years old, what strength you have? He said, Dad, you could lift that table, isn't it? And Dad said, yeah. This fella said, I can't lift that table. Am I too weak? Yeah, no strength. I mean, little children at that age, I don't know about you, eh? But little children at that age, I used to feel my father is the most powerful man in the world, Because he's so strong compared to. When you reflect on those kind of things, then you realize how important it is to have a father figure in the house. Very, very important thing. So anyway, that little boy telling the father, he said, Dad, he said, you could do so many things which I can't even start to do. But I tell you, it have one thing where I could do, where you could never do. The little father said, what? Really? The father can't believe that. However this boy could do what the father can't do. He said, the father said, well, what is that then? Tell. That boy said, Dad, I could sit on your lap. Let me see you do that. I want to see you sit on your own lap. That possible? Not possible, isn't it? You have many stories like this all over the Shastras and Puranas and or in modern times also. One fella telling the next one. Two of them, two strong man, So there are strong people out there as both. That's how come just now. This one tell I stronger than you. Other one say I stronger than you. Other say what? Yeah, I'll show you. I bet you I could carry some load in this wheelbarrow, and you could never carry that load. You could never bring back that load. I carry it in this wheelbarrow, and you can't bring it back in this wheelbarrow. That's when I say, what? Any load? You tell me. He said, Lord, you sit down in this wheelbarrow. That's the load. I carry it over here. I want to see you bring back a load in this wheelbarrow. Not possible, you see. This hand can hold this microphone. This hand can hold so many things, nah? But this hand cannot hold the hand. Let the hand hold the hand. In the very same way, it is not possible for the knower to know the knower. The knower can know the known, but the knower cannot know the knower. Like a flashlight trying to flash on itself. How it go flash on itself? Suppose you decide that the battery dark day, right? You want to flash inside it. How you flash? The flashlight cannot see its source. But because there is light in front, you know that there is a source. Because I can talk with you, I'm conscious, I'm aware, I know so many things, I know that there is a source of that knowledge. That source cannot be objectified. Otherwise it will become part of the objectified universe. It is a subject, it is not the object. There is deep philosophical knowledge. You have to give some great thought to it, reflect in your times of silence. If you don't do, you'll have to do in the next life. If you don't do in the next life, you'll have to do in the next life. But sometime you will have to do it. So now, that point established, second point, means to say the knower really can't know it self. It just is. It's just there. Second point now. Since the knower cannot know itself, just now Bhagavan is talking about the observable universe, which is the Kshetra, and Kshetrajna, the knower of this observable universe, right? And he says when you know these two, then that is knowledge. But now I just told that knower cannot be known. So the next portion of this chapter now deals with those spiritual values and those gunas and traits and qualities which, if we develop, we will merge in that Noah, become one with it, and then all questions of Noah and known and all such things will disappear. So now what is being presented is not, because that Noah is described, we saw that in second chapter from way back there. It is achintyam, unthinkable. Cannot think about, because you can only think of objectifiable things. So we are not going to think about it now. We are going to develop those traits and qualities and spiritual values and all, which will bring us closer and make us merge with that self. That is what Bhagavan presents there. And as he goes along, he tries to turn the mind to that deep core of our being. As the mind turns, it becomes like the salt doll diving into the ocean. It will not melt away immediately, but the salt doll that dives into the ocean to find the depth of the ocean, the doll will melt. After some time, gone. In the very same way, the Bhagavan turns that mind inside to deal with all the obstacles and the walls and all the social barriers and philosophical barriers and all things created by ignorance. All things we have to deal with them. Clear, go deeper and deeper. And the mind, on that journey, the mind gets dissolved, and then go. You understand this process? This is what Bhagavan is doing now from the next verse. So he lists all these great qualities which we are supposed to develop. And this is a nice portion of Bhagavad Gita. Just now we were saying chapter 12, and he gave all of those qualities. Adveshta, Sarvabhutana, Maitra, Karuna, Evacha, Nirmamo, Nirahankara. We saw all of these qualities in the last few days. Here also, see, if you are a bhakta, you study those qualities. If you are a jnani, you study these qualities. They are so nice. Now, I am tempted to go into it right away. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Amani Pam truly want to become a spiritual person, you study these qualities here, which are given from verse number 8 onwards. He says these qualities, they are themselves a jnanam. They are knowledge. Knowledge means what? They are the knowledge of the self. How you study the quality and the knowledge of the self? Bhagavan Bhashakar, when he gives his commentary on these verses, he said, because they lead directly to the self. They lead directly to the Atma. And we develop these qualities. So now see, what are these qualities? We'll see some of them today. And please don't miss this section also. All those who are listening, don't miss this section in chapter 13. Until these qualities are finished, it goes on for about 4 or 5 verses. Right? Please be there. So first quality, amanitvam. Second, adambitvam. Ahimsa, kshanti, arjabam. Also, how many qualities are listed there in the first line itself? Amanitvam means, see, maninaha bhavaha in Sanskrit means one who, that's shlaganam. Shlaganam means one who is boasting all the time. You know when people like to boast? in a boast, there are so many indicators of Durguna. To boast, there has to be several Durguna in the person one time for this one Durguna to express. Means when I boast about anything, for expressing that evil quality or that bad quality of boasting, there has to be about 5 or 6 other bad qualities to buttress this fellow. Then only it's possible. So if you pull the carpet from under their foot, you pull this boasting, all of them fall down. Shlaganam, boasting, going on talking about. And the next word is related to adambitvam. Adambitvam is swadharma prakatikaranam, Bhashyakar says. Means to say, no sir, there are some people who boast by mouth. There are some who boast by action. You getting the difference? He's doing things to show off. You understand that? He is saying nothing, but he do it to show off. This is the difference between the two words. Do that for a show. Then dambitvam it is called. So Prabhupada said adambitvam. Adambitvam. Truly we have to become to ourselves. As the day follows the night, Shakespeare said. See, I have heard countless times. The yagna going on, man, for 7 days. We will go and show your face on Thursday. Have you heard? We will go and show your face on Thursday. Oh, 180 days. It's 7 days here. That means what? You're not truly going to yagna. Isn't it? You're going to show your face. You have absolutely no interest whatsoever which is going on there. You got to show, because some kind of social obligation. Like I'm a family, they come quite here and give me a card, If I don't go, how we go? Look. So the yajna becomes just a place for you to fulfill some social obligation which you certainly do not have any desire to fulfill. But because of the force of social obligation, you should have a genuine, deep and personal desire for spiritual evolution. And then you go because of that. Then just a show. But there are many things in life where we just do it for show. That I call it dambitvam. Pretentiousness is the other word. The other English translation for that. Pretentiousness. So adambitvam is the opposite, means unpretentiousness. So one is boasting, one is showing off. Like that. Those two qualities, we have to think about them and eradicate them from our life. And let me tell you something, everybody has just in degrees. That is just in different degrees. See, if when you really, I told you, I started this whole section by telling you, when you really want to become a truly spiritual person, this is where you have to start in a fundamental way. Don't take it just lightly like that. Nah, we will hear that again next time. No. You have to really take it seriously. Amanitvam adambitvam. Ahimsa. Tomorrow we'll say ahimsa. A nice ahimsa. Truly, what is ahimsa? Non-violence, right? What exactly is non-violence? We'll see that thing tomorrow.